ZTE's reputation thus far has been largely relegated to being a name attached to entry-level smartphones here in the US. For a good while there, they delivered subpar smartphones you wouldn't touch even if they paid you to use it. Yeah, they were that bad. With the recent introduction of its new flagship line here for the US, the ZTE Axon Pro is undoubtedly the result of many years of ambitious planning. Its spec sheet's remarkable on its own, but adding to that is the $450 price it's attached with. It's undeniably bred for stardom, but will it pay off in making ZTE a formidable force here in the US? Hey guys, John V from PhoneArena here. You're watching our video review of the ZTE Axon Pro. Premium and solid, it's a stark contrast to the kind of phones we're used to seeing from US-bound ZTE phones. And that's a wonderful thing. The body's comprised out of aluminum, giving it substance and that premium craftsmanship. While it has that high-class look and feel, it makes the phone feel a bit slippery. It's not hard to draw comparisons against the HTC One M9, since there's some obvious design language similarities at play here. For all of its great qualities, the ZTE Axon Pro is still just a smidgen behind the cleaner looks and uniformity of the HTC One M9. Still, nice job on ZTE's part. Something to take note of are the speaker grills lining the top and bottom of the phone. Now, you'd first think that it's sporting dual front-firing speakers, but it's not. What we have here is simply the earpiece along the top and a single speaker on the bottom, and that's all. Interestingly enough, they're nice to include a shutter key as well, but it's only used to snap a photo, not to launch the camera app itself. The ZTE Axon Pro comes at us with a 5.5-inch 1440 by 2560 continuous grain silicone TFT LCD display, courtesy of Sharp. Naturally, it's able to produce an incredible amount of fine detail thanks to its Quad HD resolution. And while it's not perfectly calibrated, nor boasting that ideal color temperature of 6500 Kelvin, the Axon Pro's display carries enough attractive elements for us to fall in love with it. It has a luminance of 466 nits, a color temperature of 7200 Kelvin, and does decently to reproduce colors in the sRGB color spectrum. One unique thing though is that it's the first phone to employ Corning's antimicrobial Gorilla Glass, which gives the surface that slick to the touch feel. Supposedly it's claimed to kill germs and viruses, but since we're unable to verify this claim for ourselves, we'll leave saying that the slick feel of the glass makes it substantially easier to wipe away smudges and fingerprints. It's funny how things turn out. Rather than being exposed to a heavily customized Android experience, much like the phones in its Nubia line, ZTE has taken an unexpected 180-degree course of action with the Axon Pro. What we have here is a mostly stock Android 5.1.1 lollipop experience, which isn't saturated by overwhelming and redundant features. Sure, it isn't an entirely faithful experience, but still considerably closer than the heavily customized experience of other phones. So to that end, we have to give our seal of approval. Better yet, there isn't much bloatware either, which is a big deal mainly because ZTE's phones are notorious for that. On top of that, it's one of the few phones to offer Lollipop's multi-user feature. By now, we're all aware about the Snapdragon 810's lingering uncertainties, but there are no causes for alarm here. We're dealing with the 64-bit based 2.0 GHz octa-core Qualcomm Snapdragon 810 chip, the MSM8994 chipset to be exact, which is accompanied by a generous 4GB of RAM and the Adreno 430 GPU. The result is one snappy performance for all baseline tasks. And as far as graphics processing goes, the Adreno 430 GPU suffices enough to handle all of today's demanding gaming titles. But it's evidently clear that the Quad HD resolution causes it to have some missed frame rates. One of the interesting aspects of the phone is its camera, which employs a dual camera configuration, similar to how the HTC One M8 was able to apply a bokeh effect post-shot. Well, this particular system breaks down to a main 13 megapixel sensor with a 6-element f1.8 aperture lens, and then a secondary 2 megapixel one used to gather depth information. Now, the love doesn't stop there because the front-facing camera is treated to a wide-angle 8 megapixel sensor. Going beyond the hardware, the camera app is accompanied with a plethora of shooting modes and a manual one that allows us to adjust the shutter speed parameter as well, which impressively tops out at 80 seconds. The camera gear and software are cool, but at the end of the day, it's the performance and quality that matters the most. Fortunately, our views about the cameras are largely positive, but it's not enough to overcome the likes of the Galaxy S6 or the LG G4. It's particularly fantastic with close-ups, especially when using its bokeh mode to achieve that professional look. Now all that's needed is to just snap the photo and then later on have the option to select what to keep in focus and also setting the bokeh intensity. Using the automatic mode, there's nothing to gloat about with its low light performance. Well, to be frank, it's pretty subpar and plagued by softer tone details, graininess, and washed out colors. Enthusiasts, however, can achieve better results by keeping the phone extremely still and setting the shutter speed for a long exposure. When it comes to video, you'll want to stick with shooting in Ultra HD resolution because 1080p is just lacking with the sharp details. At least with Ultra HD resolution, it's able to maintain a high level of clarity while also being complemented by its super clear audio recording and fast focus adjustment. And finally, its slow motion video capture is cool looking, but comes up short in the detail department. ZTE made sure to talk about its superior audio experience, and we have to agree with them that it's outstanding. We're blown away by the intensity of its volume output, which is deafening at 80.3 decibels, but never sounds shrill or irritating. It simply commands authority. Things get even better through the headphone jack, since it's able to achieve a high degree of fidelity after enabling its Dolby audio. It's backed by substantial audio ranges that never sound flat or dull. Sweeten the deal even more, it also comes included with JBL in-ear headphones to help solidify it as one of the best phones for music listening. Watching videos on the phone is a treat as well, thanks to its brilliant and sharp display. There's even a multitasking aspect that allows video to minimize and continue playing in their own window. The Axon Pro is close to perfection when it comes to call quality. That's because voices are clear and have strong emphasis on both ends of the line. Well, there's just one thing that prevents it from achieving total domination, and that's the placement of the earpiece. Since it's offset to the right, we have to be mindful about moving the phone accordingly so that audio is projected properly towards our ear. Endowed with a 3000 mAh battery, the capacity is right up there with other phones in its caliber. We find its battery life to be average, which is enough to propel us through a solid 1 day of usage. In our battery benchmark tests, it achieved 6 hours and 15 minutes from a full charge. That puts it on the same level as the HTC One M9 and the LG G4, but still lags behind the Samsung Galaxy S6. While there isn't much to gloat about its battery life, the handset features Qualcomm's Quick Charge 2.0, and boy is it incredibly fast. In fact, it takes only 85 minutes, which is perhaps one of the fastest when factoring its battery capacity. We waited a long time for a premium flagship from ZTE to arrive stateside, so we're happy to report that the ZTE Axon Pro doesn't disappoint. First and foremost, this is one incredibly powerful smartphone, especially from a spec sheet standpoint. Secondly, it surprises us with its mostly stock Android Lollipop experience. And finally, the $450 cost attached to this unlocked phone makes it so that it's undercutting the competition in a significant way. The biggest opportunity left for the Axon Pro is achieving broader availability. Yes, it's unlocked and ready to ride on any GSM network, but it lacks the necessary radios to make it compatible to work with the CDMA networks of Sprint and Verizon. In that regard, it lacks the broader exposure it needs to get into the hands of consumers. If you're looking for the savings in a high-end flagship phone, you'll certainly get it here with the Axon Pro, whereas devices like the iPhone 6 and the Galaxy S6 will cost you at least $650. This is just the beginning, as the Axon Pro is meant to be the bridge device in getting ZTE's name into the minds of consumers. So far, it strikes a nerve that's deeply electrical. Let's just hope they can use the momentum to their advantage.